What's up, guys? Last year's Redmi Watch 4 made a lot of noise. It was one of the best smartwatches in 2023 and early 2024. We made a full review of this watch and even compare it to the Honor Watch 4. You can watch these videos by the links in the description. It is no surprise that we have been waiting for the new Redmi Watch 5. Although it is not released yet, I think it will be available before at the end of this year. However, the Lite and Active versions of the Redmi Watch 5 have been released. I am holding both of these watches in my hands right now. At first glance, they look very similar, but they have a few important differences. By the name, I would think that the Redmi Watch 5 Active is a sports watch, while the Redmi 5 Lite is a more simplified version. In fact, the opposite is true, because the Lite version has a built-in GPS, while the Active version doesn't have it. Let's compare the new Redmi watches and find other differences between them. So the Redmi Watch 5 Active and Redmi Watch 5 Lite have the same design of the boxes. There are images of the watches, Mi logos, and models' names on the front of the boxes, as well as specifications on the back. By the way, the watches are available on the global market, so the inscriptions on the boxes are in different languages, and they have multi-language support as well. The contents of the packages are the same, such as smartwatches, magnetic charging cables, and user manuals. Nothing extraordinary here, so let's move on to the design. The first difference between the watches that I see that the Redmi Watch 5 Lite has glossy plastic frame, while the Redmi Watch 5 Active comes with a matte plastic frame with metal spray coating. I like the Redmi Watch 5 Lite better because it looks more expensive. The physical buttons on the sides are made of the same material as the frames. The back panels look identical, so I think they have the same health tracking sensors. We will measure heart rate and SpO2 later in this video. By the way, the charging cables also look the same. Let's try charging the watches with one cable. Yeah, it works. So the charging cables and charging pins are identical on the new Redmi watches. Another important difference is in the straps. Although they are made of the same TPU material and they have the same size. The Redmi Watch 5 Lite has a clasp. You know, it is much more comfortable than the one on the Redmi Watch 5 Active. I find it very difficult to put on the Redmi Watch 5 Active, and I would change this strap because of that. Nevertheless, when the watch is on the hand, the strap is comfortable. By the way, I have both watches in black, but the Lite version is also available in gold and the Active version in silver. So far, I like the Redmi Watch 5 Lite better because of its glossy frame and clasp on the strap. Now let's talk about displays. I think you can see it right away that the display of the Redmi Watch 5 Active is a little bigger than the screen of the Redmi Watch 5 Lite, 2 inches and 1.96 inches respectively. However, their main difference is not even the size, but the type of the panel. The Active version has an LCD panel, while the Lite version comes with AMOLED screen. By the way, although the Redmi Watch 5 Lite has a smaller screen, it has higher resolution and higher pixel density, 410 by 502 pixels and 332 ppi. As for the Redmi Watch 5 Active, it has screen resolution of 320 by 385 pixels and pixel density of 250 ppi. To be honest, I looked close at both displays and didn't notice much difference. Only the icons on the Redmi Watch 5 Active are a bit bigger because to the larger screen size. However, since the Redmi Watch 5 Lite has an AMOLED panel, it supports always-on display mode. The Active version doesn't have this feature. The other screen settings of these watches are the same, such as brightness, auto lock, raise to wake, cover to sleep, and tap to wake. In general, the Redmi Watch 5 Lite and Redmi Watch 5 Active have the same user interface, controls, and functions. You can read new notifications by swiping down, open Quick Settings menu by swiping up, and switch widgets by swiping left and right. You can also open the menu with all functions by pressing the physical button. You can see it is all the same here. That's because the watches run on HyperOS. However, I was surprised to see that the Redmi Watch 5 Lite runs on the version 5.1.129, while the Redmi Watch 5 Active has OS version 2.1.93, a few generations apart, but they look exactly the same. You know, the only difference I found is running courses on the Redmi Watch 5 Lite. The Redmi Watch 5 Active doesn't have this. As for the settings, they are also totally identical. Just take a look at this. Okay, now let's take a quick look at the mobile app. If you have global versions of the watches, you can connect them to the same smartphone and app. At first glance, the functions are also all the same here. You know, the Xiaomi official website states that the Redmi Watch 5 Active supports 34 hours heart rate monitoring and all-day blood oxygen and stress monitoring. If we open the page with Redmi Watch 5 Lite, we don't see this information. However, in the fitness and health menu of the app, we see that both watches have continuous heart rate, blood pressure, and stress monitoring. Another useful feature of the new Redmi watches is Bluetooth calling. They both support dual mic noise reduction. As expected, the call screen is the same on these watches because they have the same operating system, and overall call quality is very similar. I would even say identical. Finally, we come to the main difference between the new Redmi watches. I am talking about the built-in GPS, but first I want to compare heart rate, blood pressure, and stress monitors. As you can see, heart rate and SpO2 measurements are the same, while stress results are very similar. I believe the new Redmi watches have the same health tracking sensors. By the way, they even look the same. You should also know that the Redmi Watch 5 Lite is claimed to have more than 150 sports modes, while the Redmi Watch 5 Active has more than 140 modes. I think it is because the Lite version has full swimming mode as well as 17 other water sports modes. As for the Redmi Watch 5 Active, it doesn't have any sport modes for swimming at all. It is kind of weird, because both watches have a 5 ATM water resistance. However, I don't recommend swimming with the Redmi Watch 5 Active. So perhaps the main difference between these watches is that the Lite version has built-in GPS, while the Active version does not. The Redmi Watch 5 Lite has built-in 5 system GNSS. In theory, if you plan to use a watch to track your running, cycling, or walking, then the Redmi Watch 5 Lite should be better. But let's put it to the test. When we start the sport mode on the Redmi Watch 5 Lite, it automatically connects to GPS. As for the Redmi Watch 5 Active, it prompts to connect the watch to the smartphone to use the GPS from it. I will not do that, and I specifically disconnected the watch from the phone and check how it counts distance and steps by itself. I also ran the sports mode on my smartphone. Let's go for a walk. After a 20-minute walk, we see 1.76 kilometers on the smartphone. As for the watches, the Redmi Watch 5 Active has 1.86 kilometers and the Redmi Watch 5 Lite has 1.68 kilometers. So the Lite version measures a longer distance than the smartphone, while the Active version measures a shorter distance. By the way, the Redmi watches counted almost the same number of steps. If we talk about battery, it is the same in the new Redmi watches, 470 mAh. The battery life is also the same, up to 18 days. However, if you will be using always-on-display mode or even GPS on the Redmi Watch 5 Lite, then expect a shorter battery life. So at first glance, the Redmi Watch 5 Active and the Redmi Watch 5 Lite are very similar. They have the same operating systems, functions, settings, mobile apps, health tracking sensors, and even batteries. However, the Redmi Watch 5 Lite has a few advantages. First, it has an AMOLED display with higher resolution. If always-on display mode is important to you, then the Lite version is your choice. In addition, the Redmi Watch 5 Lite has sports modes for swimming. For some reason, the Redmi Watch 5 Active doesn't have them, even though it has the same water resistance rating. And the last advantage of the Redmi Watch 5 Lite is the built-in GPS. It allows you to track your movement and choose you the route after your workout. The price difference is not that big, so I would go for the Redmi Watch 5 Lite. Thank you for watching. See you soon!